Once upon a time, in 1991 to be precise, there lived a Disney film based on a classic fairy tale known as Beauty and the Beast. It was so beloved by both audiences and critics alike that it became the first ever animated feature to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. But then, one winter's night, the Walt Disney Company decided to lay a terrible curse on their library of animated films, and one by one, transform them into a hideous live-action reboot. Actually, that may sound a little too harsh. Not all of them are terrible. I mean, I really like The Jungle Book, and Cinderella was alright. But the others, like the Alice in Wonderland films, Maleficent, and Pete's Dragon, they can range from just okay to just dreadful. Where was I again? Hold on a second. Yes, here. When it was announced it was Beauty and the Beast's turn, many fell into despair and lost all hope, for who could ever learn to love a Disney reboot? However, for one critic, he has a bigger question in mind.
What the fridge is the point of rebooting Beauty and the Beast? I mean, I get redoing some of the other Disney films like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and The Jungle Book. They're animated classics, sure, but they're not necessarily perfect either. So at least we can be more open to a different and maybe even an updated interpretation. Beauty and the Beast, however, is one of the closest things Disney has ever done to perfection. Every aspect of that film was executed phenomenally. From the powerful story, to the lovable characters, to the unforgettable songs, to the masterfully crafted animation. This is not just one of Disney's best animated films, but one of the greatest animated films of all time. One of the rare instances that showed the public that animation can be a legitimate cinematic art form. Who would ever be so nuts to think that they would be capable of recapturing that magic? In fact, in the words of producer Don Hahn,
what a perfect storm of people. You take any one component out, you take out Peter Schneider, you take out Roger Allers, you take out Glenn Keane, Kirk, Gary, Jeffrey, Howard Ashman, and it's less than perfection. And somehow all those pieces fit together, and nobody will ever be able to create that again, and that was that perfect storm of Beauty and the Beast.
So I guess the plan for the reboot is to just take away 99% of all those people and replace them with a bunch of A-list celebrities and the director of what again? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, seriously though. I do understand why they would want to bring in someone like Bill Condon. I mean, we are talking about the same guy who directed Dreamgirls and also wrote Chicago. So at the very least, this guy knows his way around movie musicals. But, as you can probably tell, I'm not really as enthusiastic with Disney rebooting a masterpiece like Beauty and the Beast. Especially when their track record seems to be very mixed, from being surprisingly great with The Jungle Book, to films like Maleficent, well, that just plain sucks. But, when it comes to this one, how did it go as a reboot? Well, I would say that at least it does respect the original. Unlike reboots like Maleficent and Pete's Dragon, if you go in to see Beauty and the Beast, at least you'll get Beauty and the Beast. The story in its core stays true to the original and keep all the important moments in order to have it as authentic as possible. Even if there would be any changes to the narrative, they don't affect the overall flow of the plot. In fact, the key scenes of the original are equally as vital in the remake, so it is aware that those moments work very well and tries to do the same. However, when it comes to any significant changes, they are rather small. In fact, they can go unnoticed. Rather it be Maurice turning into Geppetto, giving the Enchantress more of a role, or even explaining about whatever happened to Belle's mother, they range from being pretty minor to absolutely pointless. Like, the movie would still be the same without them. Even that whole controversy with LeFou being gay, it's barely noticeable. He probably showed as much affection here as much as he did in the animated version. In short, those dumb people you hear about in the news, they're pretty much yelling at nothing. As for the musical numbers, they're actually done quite well. Sure, they're not as strong as the older versions, but on their own, they are still the highlights of the movie. Whether it be Gaston, the mob song, or even Be Our Guest, these new renditions are slightly updated, but they still hold that element that makes those songs so lovable. When looking into the new ones, however, it can highly depend on which one. I don't think I'll be hearing any of these as much as stuff like the Beauty and the Beast song or Be Our Guest, but there are some like How Does a Moment Last Forever or Evermore are nice additions, while others like Days in the Sun end up being pretty forgettable. In fact, there are many things that are forgettable here. With all the extra plot points and some of the significance of the characters that would lead to nowhere, it makes you wonder.
There must be more to this Disney reboot.
Oh, sorry about that. Kind of got a little carried away there, but anyways. Now, going back into the 1991 animated film, one of the reasons why it is considered a masterpiece is actually because of the animation. The way that they designed the creative and wondrous characters, the way that they brought inanimate objects to life, and the powerful human emotions that the animators have to draw frame by frame. The visuals in that movie is a real beauty. But the one in the remake is an absolute freaking beast! If you ever need an example on how animated films can look better than live-action CGI, then this is it. The visual effects of this film are absolutely horrible. Every piece of living furniture and even the walls look like an overly designed computer-generated mess. They tried putting in so much detail into them that now they hurt the eyes, and the way they move is more horrifying than enchanting. Seriously, I always expect Madame de Gardrobe to eat Belle with that weird curtain mouth. Also, I see what they were trying to do with the objects. Have them look as convincingly real as possible, while also make it seem believable that they could walk and talk without going in the same direction as the original. The result that came out of it is just absolutely uncomfortable. They have this weird uncanny valley where it tries so hard to put on a realistic face on an object on top of the unnecessarily huge amounts of details and try to pass that off as the updated versions of classic characters. But they just end up being visually unpleasing. Now, some of you might think that if I say the way they did it here is bad, then how do you properly bring these Disney characters into live action? Well, that's actually simple. Don't. And speaking of crappy CGI, the Beast is an absolute joke. I honestly bursted out laughing when they did the big reveal of his face. I mean, really? This is your Beast? In the animated film, you can see how he can be a terrifying monster, but also has a soul, which allows us to see his compassionate side. This one is like he didn't even transform at all. The dude just got a lot hairier and is ready for Halloween. Seriously, even Broadway pulled it off better with the makeup, yet you can't use those computers to make the Beast look convincing?
And when she opens the door, give her a dashing debonair smile. Come, come, show me the smile.
I know I am going pretty nasty on the visuals, but I cannot say that everything in this film looks terrible. I mean, the sets actually do look really gorgeous, and also the use of color is quite admirable, the way that it tries to keep it as much of the same as the original. Again, some of the visual aspects actually do work, but when they don't, oh man, they really do suck. But there actually is one thing that I was expecting to be as bad as the CGI, and that would be the cast. I don't know what the fridge happened, but somehow they grew on me. On paper, many of these actors would feel completely out of place for these characters. I mean, Kevin Kline, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Ewan McGregor? What the fridge kind of casting is this? In practice, however, they managed to perform these characters with great charm and have a sense of the original characters, on top of bringing a unique flair to make themselves more different than their predecessors. Many of them, like Josh Gad, Luke Evans, Emma Thompson, and even Dan Stevens, proved themselves to be great suitors to the original cast. Not better than them, but capable of paying homage to what they've done before. However, even if all the actors did well, there is one that is a massive burden to the feature. One that is a bigger problem than the crappy CGI, and that is Emma Watson as Belle. I don't know what they were thinking when putting her in. It's like if Disney looked at way too many of those Disney Harry Potter fan art and found tons of those Belle as Hermione ones and go with that. But I do get why she had to be there to begin with. I mean, she did decide to do this over getting all that fame, praise, and all those awards for that La La Land role. At least with Ewan McGregor, sure, he sounds nothing like the original Lumiere. But his performance allowed him to bring that special illusion that makes us think that he is. Never in this entire movie did I think that Watson is Belle. She's just lazily going through this movie showing less emotion than her frickin' horse. On top of that, her singing is equally as unpleasant as her acting. There have been debates if she was auto-tuned throughout the movie, but either way, her voice is not meant for a theatrical production like this.
But he was mean and he was coarse and unrefined, and now he's dear and so unsure. I wonder why.
However, rather it be the poor performance or bad dialogue, she really does bring the movie down and make her relationship with the Beast not as convincing or genuine. This is the biggest problem with the film because the romance is the heart of the story, no pun intended. If you can't execute that well, you don't really have much, especially when she feels more cold-hearted than the original. And yet, it somehow knows that it can't deliver it as perfectly as the original did, so it tries to distract the audience with all these subplots that are unnecessary. But in a movie where it's about the Beauty and the Beast, you can't hide the flaws that are in what's supposed to be what the film is about. The thing with this movie is that it is Beauty and the Beast, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, sure, it looks like Beauty and the Beast, it sounds like Beauty and the Beast, but it doesn't feel like Beauty and the Beast. I mean, with all that money thrown in, you don't really get a lot in return. The 2017 Beauty and the Beast remake is nothing but a shell of the 1991 animated feature. The story follows the same steps as the original with respect, most of the cast deliver a great performance, and the songs, both old and new, stand well on their own here. However, as it does hold the basic elements of the film, it has none of what makes it the Best Picture nominated masterpiece, and instead is filled with terrible visual effects, pointless subplots, and the big issue of Emma Watson in general. It's not a bad movie, but most of the good things in here came from the original. Instead of giving you a recommendation, let me tell you what this movie actually is. This is the kind of film that has you curious to go see it once, and then you'll just forget about it and go back to the original, because it's literally the same thing, but better in all aspects. As for the rating, this is a 6 out of 10 movie. Doesn't feel as insulting as Maleficent, but nowhere does it reach the achievements of The Jungle Book. If there's one thing that I've truly learned from this movie, it's the power of animation, especially in this modern age. You see, with live-action movies like Beauty and the Beast, there really isn't a sense of movie magic. Like, the production of that film is not really that different from any other big-budgeted live-action movie that goes heavy on the CGI and stuff like that. On top of having actors that you can only see as the actors and not as the characters that they portray. But with animated films like Beauty and the Beast, on the other hand, that thing would require the right people with the right amount of skills and creativity in order to go and bring a story to life as grand as that. And when you do bring in the right people in order to go and bring their talents to create this one big ambitious project, it can actually go and achieve something that can go far bigger than their imagination can possibly expect from it. And that is exactly why Beauty and the Beast nowadays is considered a masterpiece. Why it actually got the Best Picture nomination at the Oscars, and the first one to ever do so as an animated feature. And why it is also considered not just Disney's, but also animation's greatest achievements, or at least one of their greatest achievements. Now, anybody can go and create something like the live-action remake, but it requires the right people to go and create the animated film. See you later, dudes!